Hey guys, so I'm making this video today because there was a problem that I identified with the Red Sox roster this last offseason, and I think as we're heading into this year's trade deadline and this next offseason, it's going to start coming to a major pressure point. Basically, that problem is the Red Sox have too many position players within their upper minor league system that are going to be ready to play at the major league level. Now, this might sound like a good problem, and in a lot of ways it really is, but if the Red Sox don't play this well, then they could end up losing some players in the Rule 5 draft that could help the roster for players that may or may not be in the future of the Red Sox organization to begin with. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about the problem that we have right now, as well as what I think are the easiest moves to kind of alleviate part of that problem, and then we're going to discuss what the Red Sox may or may not need to be able to do this trade deadline in this offseason. As you can see, there's a lot of names on this list, and I'm going to start explaining it, but basically what we want to break this down to is there are obviously 9 starters in the lineup, and then you're going to be able to have 4 bench players. An active roster can carry 13 position players, and so that's what we're going to be targeting here. Is we need 13 position players and a couple players that potentially could be in the minors on the 40-man roster, but we need to be able to break all of this down into smaller bites. And so right off the bat, who are the players that are probably not going to be on this roster next year? Well, I think that there's some easy ones to kind of cross off the list here. Dom Smith, Garrett Cooper. I seriously doubt that they're going to be on the roster coming next season. They're kind of just filling guys while Tristan Cassis is gone. If he was on the roster, they wouldn't be here, and it'd be probably Cassis and Dahlbeck. Bobby Dahlbeck is another one where he is out of options this year, guys. He is probably not going to be on this team next year, and honestly, might be the beginning of the end for him unless he is able to accept minor league assignments, which I think that another team probably is going to pick him up if the Red Sox try to send him to the minors and remove him from the 40-man. They're probably going to claim him because he's like a quadruple A guy. You know, he's not great, but like he's Bobby Dahlbeck. So, but I don't think he's gonna be on the roster this next year. So we're gonna take him off as well. Tyler O'Neill is maybe one of the more interesting ones that's on here because he's like the only right-handed power bat the Red Sox have basically at all right now. You have Trevor Story, who will be coming back next season, but to be honest, like, is there room for Tyler O'Neill to be on this roster? I don't think so. Like, I really don't. Like, you have Duran, Rafaela, and Abreu who are going to be manning the outfield here. So if I'm thinking logically here, O'Neill's on a 1-year deal. Can you trade him at the deadline for a piece? Maybe. I mean, he's been playing kind of like shit, to be honest. But if he plays a little bit better, maybe he can get you a decent prospect, maybe like a top 10, top 15 guy within an organization. Maybe it gets really hot and you can get a little bit better than that. But I'm going to go ahead and say Tyler O'Neill is not going to be there. And then we'll move we'll move Duran over here to left field, and then Rafaela will be the center fielder. Jamie Westbrook, he'll get easily taken off the roster. We'll DFA him. That's not an issue. But then it starts to get to the crunch time. Like here, obviously, we're talking 2026, right? Like this is the roster that we might potentially be looking at for 2026. So you have guys that you know are going to be there, and then you have guys where it's like, okay, do we want to lose them? Do we want to keep them active in the roster? And how are we potentially going to retain them? So I think the obvious guys here that are absolutely going to have to be on the 40-man by this time next year, just due to their development, is probably going to be Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, and Kyle Teal. Like the big three, we talk about them all the time, but like they're the big three for a reason. Like they're all developing to the point where at some point they're going to be on this 40-man. I think Roman Anthony might be the one guy that might not be on the 40-man at the beginning of next year. And to be honest, you know, all 3 of these guys potentially might not be, but I think we see Mayer and Teal even this year. They just look so poised and ready. So like we could take Roman Anthony and like move him down, and I think that's a very reasonable possibility. Is he's kind of more on the minor league system where he's not like active on the roster. Tyler Heineman, I think that's pretty easy. He's not going to be here anymore. And I think Reese McGuire, I think that depending on how Kyle Teal develops, we'll probably DFA Heineman at some point this year. And Kyle Teal will be that third catcher. If there's ever an injury for him, he'll fill in and probably get a cup of coffee this week or for a week or two. And if there's a major injury like Reese McGuire or Connor Wong is just down, I think Kyle Teel potentially could just skip AAA. Like he could get called up if Connor Wong went down. I think you potentially call up Kyle Teel right now, but um, regardless of that, I think these are the three catchers that you're gonna have on the 40 man this year or this next season, and I think that's just how it's gonna be. I don't think Reese McGuire is the person that's going to prevent Kyle Teel from being called up either. So if he refuses assignment, he'll probably be DFA'd, and they'll have another third string catcher in the minor leagues, maybe like Nathan Hickey or something, if he's still within the organization as well. But so now we get to this point though, and there's a lot of moves that the Red Sox don't really feel comfortable with making. I can tell you that right now. Like David Hamilton, they've liked what they've seen with him this year. Manuel Valdez, like he's obviously shown flashes of being really good, but he's also been terrible at times. But these are guys that aren't going to get taken off the 40 man probably. I think Rami Gonzalez is potentially a guy that could be like DFA'd if he doesn't want to accept minor league assignments. But again, like this is the point where like these are the guys that you got left that you got to have on the 40 man, because the thing is, and I'm gonna switch screens really fast here. So you have guys within the system that have to be added to the roster. Like they don't have a choice. And these are all of the guys that are already on the 40-man roster. But then like Matthew Lugo and Nick York, they're Rule 5 draft eligible guys. Basically what that means is if they don't get put on the 40-man roster this December, they can get selected by another team for nothing. And you don't want to lose Nick York or Matthew Lugo out of this organization. I mean, if you guys haven't been watching Matthew Lugo, he might get called up this year. Like he is progressing so quickly. Like I'm recording this video right now, and he hit his second AAA home run in 3 games after batting like I think 1069. Like he had an OPS of 1069 in the minor leagues, so at AA, and so he's coming up really fast, and he very well even could be on the major league roster this season. So if he's on your roster, who's getting DFA'd and who's going to be in the minor leagues? And that's where the question starts to like poise itself, because like you look at the opening day lineup, and like I kind of glossed over this really quick, but like this is basically what the roster is right now. And if you notice, a big problem here is like all of our best hitters are left-handed hitters. Yeah, that's not great. Like we need a right-handed power bat, and the reason Trevor Story's batting third in this like mock lineup is because like you can't just have like 4 batters that are lefties start off every game. Like maybe if you're facing a righty, like you could justify it, but it's just not something that's sustainable for a long term in the season, or else teams are going to really take advantage of that. And so where's that righty bat going to come from? And I think that you see the Red Sox, and they're already trying to like dump Masataka Yoshida. And I think if they were able to trade him this last offseason, they would have, but they're just not able to find somebody to take him. And if he doesn't produce this year, it's really weird to say, but he might be like a DFA release candidate. And that sucks, because it's not like Masa is like a bad player. Like he had a really good year last year, but I think he's just going to get caught up in this roster constraint situation where he just doesn't fit into the roster. Like he's holding a position where like if he didn't have to be a DH and could play in the outfield, it would provide a little bit more flexibility to either A, get him in the lineup, and B, like get some of these guys in the DH spot. Like if you could have, Cassis DH, or you could have, Devers take a break at DH, then you could more easily sign somebody to be able to take that spot. Like if you had Alex Bregman or something, like as a theoretical signing this offseason. Like Bregman, can play all over the infield. He's a very polished hitter for the most part. Like he's going to give you 20 plus home runs and give you a decent batting average. Like I think Bregman fits in with the mold really well of the team. But again, if you sign like Alex Bregman, like, okay, what does that do for your minor league players that you're calling up? And so there's a lot of layers to all of this that again is just going to cause problems and problems and problems. And so what I think is going to end up happening is the Red Sox are probably going to either have to sign or trade for some sort of righty bat. Like that was Tyler O'Neill. It was the guy they got this year, but they got to get somebody either better or at least comparable to be able to fill into those top 5 spots in the lineup along with Trevor Story. Because like how much can you count on Connor Wong or Vaughn Grissom or Cedon Rafaela to like be a good offensive force? Like all 3 of those players, I think they can be good offensive players, but are they consistently going to be somebody who's going to bat in the top 5 of the lineup for you? I don't know. I just don't think that they have like the on base skills to warrant putting them up there with the big guys. Like Willie Abreu, he's almost solidified himself pretty well. Like he should be in the top half of the lineup, hopefully. Um, so where's the ready back coming from? And if you look at the minor league system for the guys that potentially could come up too, like you have Teal, who I think he's going to be on the bench starting next season, and then you have Mayer and Anthony. They're all lefties. You have Matthew Lugo, who I mean, if he could develop into somebody, but again, like he plays second base, which I guess he could take over at second base. But then where does Von Grissom go into Manuel Valdez? Like you got to make a decision on that. And then you have guys like Chase Mydroth, which like he's if you guys haven't seen this guy, he basically is just going to be a super utility for somebody and do really well. Like he's probably going to give you a high batting average, not much power, but he's like a Brock Holt stereotypical guy, like going to fill in and just do things for you that are really well. And then you have guys like Nick Sogard, who I know the Red Sox wouldn't want to lose him out of the organization. But like where do we go from here? And I think that the solution here is the Red Sox have to make a trade, and they could make a pretty big trade pretty easily because if you look at what we're doing right now, I'm only covering the position players, right? We're not going over all of the pitchers, which they also have some issues alongside of that. But like if you have to roster or you want to be able to roster all of these guys, I think everybody from Mydroth up here are somebody that you would want to have on the 40-man roster. And you can't keep all of these guys, and you still have to add like a player or two to be able to balance this lineup better. So if this is your 40-man roster, like there's issues here, and there's players that potentially could be dealt. And are they going to pick one of those players from the big three and look at it and be like, okay, do we really want three more left-handed hitters in this lineup? Because what happens here if this is like the realistic future for the lineup, like we move Kyle Teal up here and he's our catcher, right? Okay, that's fine. So we'll take him off. So we got another lefty. And then we move Marcelo Meyer up here and say he's the shortstop. Okay, well, Trevor Story probably would just go to second base, right? So, and then Von Grissom comes out. But then we have Roman Anthony, and he comes into the outfield. Where does Roman Anthony fit? Like, you've already extended Cedar Rafaela, so you've committed to him. And then you have Jaron Duran and Willie Abreu. Well, they're not going anywhere. So that probably means that Massa has to leave to be able to get him into the lineup. So Massa's gone. But then, like, look at this lineup. You have 7 hitters in your everyday lineup that, like, potentially would be left-handed hitters, and that's just not realistic, especially when your bench, you look at it, and if Massa's not going to sit on the bench, but like you have Emmanuel Valdez and David Hamilton that are also lefties that potentially could justify being a spot. So like this is like the crop here that I think you might be trading from, and I think that you can get some value out of these guys. Like if you see Nick York and he develops well at AAA, I think Nick York is a guy that could get some value back for you, maybe a solid like relief pitcher, or maybe be a part of a package for a starting pitcher. Or you could go bold and you could trade like one of the guys that's on the team right now, or one of the big prospects. And if you do that, like you could get back some legit players. And honestly, like I'm huge on Roman Anthony. I'm huge on him. But if you've got Jaron Duran, you've got Cedar Rafaela and Willie Abreu, I think those are 3 guys that you can kind of count on to be mainstays in the everyday lineup. I know Rafaela hasn't, like, he's batting 200 right now, but like you've seen Rafaela produce well in a couple games. Like I know it's just been flashes. I'm not saying he's going to do that all the time, but if he bats 250, and I think that that's pretty easy for him to be able to get up to 250 at some point in the next year or so. His defense is ridiculous. Like he's Jackie Bradley Jr. out there. He might be better. He's better than Jackie Bradley Jr. Let's just say it. Like he's better than JBJ because he can play the infield defense the exact same way that he plays the outfield. Like he's the best defensive player on this team. So Rafael is not going to go anywhere. You don't want to get rid of Willie or Abreu, and then Jaron Duran's your spark plug. Like, and you still have 4 more years of control after this year. So where's Duran going to go? He's not going anywhere. So I think honestly, like, is Roman Anthony going to get traded? Like, I might consider it. If you can get a good package back, if you can get a top like 20 starting pitcher in the league and have control over him, would I trade Roman Anthony? I think that I probably would. It depends on who you're getting back. I mean, I wouldn't want to trade him for like a 1 or 2 year guy, but if it's somebody who's under like a cost controlled contract, or you can get the opposing team to like eat part of a contract if it's a little bit bigger, or you just get one of those young up and coming guys. Like I know they always talk about Luzardo from the Marlins. Like I think Roman Anthony's getting to the point where it's like he might be the guy that you trade. And at some point, there's going to have to be a move between Wilyer Abreu, Jarren Duran, and Roman Anthony. And it just feels like Roman Anthony is more and more likely to be that guy that they're willing to part with, because the rest of these guys, they just have positions where they don't have the value that's going to net you those prospects. Like you might say like, oh, well, what about Matthew Lugo? Like, why couldn't you keep him over Roman Anthony? Why can't you keep Roman Anthony over Matthew Lugo? And like you could, but Lugo provides a slightly more versatility. He does not have the hype around Roman Anthony, so he's not going to get you as much back if you did move on from him. And he's right-handed hitter too. Like he's a right-handed hitter. You want to get rid of another right-handed hitter that potentially could do well for you? Like, no, not really. In addition to this, like you also have like these 4 guys here at the bottom that I've listed. Like these are 4 guys that are Rule 5 draft eligible this next offseason. So like in addition to like all of these players that we've talked about, like these are 4 guys that if they don't get protected, they're all in AA or higher and performing well enough to potentially get selected. I don't think that Paulino or Alan Castro are really guys that are going to get protected, but you look at Garcia and Blaze Jordan, and do you want to lose those guys? No, they're doing well in the minor leagues. Like they still could provide value to your team, and you don't want them to just be given away. So they either get added to the roster or the 40-man roster, or they get traded. Like that's the option. They're going to get selected if you don't take them. So anyway, guys, I guess that's pretty much the video here. Hopefully that kind of like makes some sense to you as to like where there are problems within the lineup and why I think that there will be a big move and should be a big move, and we should expect something to happen with these players. Like there needs to be 2, 3, 4 of these guys getting moved to be able to be like, okay, we still have that solid depth in the minor leagues. If we need to call up some of these guys, we have options, while not losing any of these guys for nothing. Because if we go through and we end up losing a guy like Nick York, or we lose like Blaze Jordan, or one of those, maybe even like I don't think they would lose Matthew Lugo at this point, but if we lost like Matthew Lugo in the Rule 5 draft this offseason, that would be shockingly incompetent. And so there's got to be moves. There's too many players in the pool to keep them all. And so it's a problem. It's a good problem, but it could be a huge fumble if they don't figure it out before this next year. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I can make more stuff like this if you like it. If not, this might just be the only time I do something kind of like this, but trying to figure out my little niche in the YouTube world. But let me know what you guys think, and hopefully this kind of made sense to you. So all right, until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.